YouTube, today we're going to be taking a look at the only guide that we will ever need for creating pixel art. There's also a garbage man outside, which is lovely. Now, I'm currently animating for Aaliyah's model. It's sitting at over 2,000 frames of animation for one VTuber model. And the garbage man really decided to come right now. And so I was wondering if there's anything, maybe tips, tricks, or what have yous that I could learn from this video to potentially animate faster / better. So let's get into it.
I have been crafting my pixel art skills for years and years and years. So today, in a single video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to get started with and actually not suck at
Yes,
art,
teach me everything.
especially when it comes to making pixel art for games. We're going to start at ground zero with software and setup, and then transition into line work and colors and all the fun stuff.
Oh no,
First things first, you
what
need
the?
a place to actually do the pixel art, so you need a software. Aseprite is the go-to for
Sorry.
me and many other pixel artists because it has super nice UI. You can do
It is great.
animations really nicely. It's got sprite sheets, tile sets, a lot of things built for making games. It is $20 technically, but because it's open source, you can find it online for free pretty easily. But you didn't hear
This is
that
true.
from me. What? Who told you that?
What? Yeah, I do pay for my Aseprite, but that's because I wanted to see the number on Steam. I think I'm sitting at like over 10,000 hours on Aseprite. Hold on, let me see. I'm gonna see right now. Okay, go to your Steam and see what's your most played thing. Hours played. Oh, it's not gonna put the game there. Hold on. I'm sitting at 17,315.4 hours on Aseprite right now. Insane. Absolutely insane. And I totally didn't fall asleep with the software on sometimes.
Libre Sprite is kind of the like go-to recompiled version. It's just an older version of Aseprite. It's basically the same thing. Try that out, see if you like it, and then eventually, you know, support the developers, be good. But if you're not feeling Aseprite, you can usually configure Photoshop for pixel art pretty easily, or you can go to this website called Piskel. Nice, so now you have a place to
Piskel?
actually draw things. But we're actually
Actually, you can do pixel art in literally any art software. You just scroll in really hard, and then you use a hard brush instead of like one of the fuzzier ones, because most of them are fuzzy and have anti-aliasing on the edges. But if you literally just make a brush that is a pixel large and fully opaque, then you can do pixel art. Like my model, this one I'm using right now, this model, I had to start doing the art for it in Clip Studio. So I'm doing pixel art in Clip Studio Paint instead of Aseprite because the file is quite simply too big for Aseprite, which that's another thing you have to be careful with is like size limitations, because there are a lot of size limitations for Aseprite, being number of layers, number of frames, and then also the aspect ratio of the pixel art you're working with.
going to be picking the colors to draw with ourselves. In fact, right now the goal is to avoid swatching or mixing our own colors completely. And that's because we're going to be automating the entire process using AI. I'm just kidding. A lot of tutorials out there are going to try and teach you color theory and how to mix and shift your colors and all that. My advice is to not really worry about that right now because you don't have to. Instead, you can find a palette online that someone else made that's designed to look good so that you can actually focus on the fundamentals and get good at drawing, and then eventually if you want to learn color theory, you can do that. So this website called Lowspec is going to be our best friend. They've got all kinds of color palettes. You can sort by the number.
I've played around on Lowspec. I even used to do some like little art challenges with friends where we'd like pick a Lowspec palette and like draw stuff together. But I stopped using it mostly because when I was doing VTuber model comms, like if you do commission work with pixel art, you can use a palette. There's nothing saying you can't, but it becomes very challenging because some VTubers are very picky about having like their specific colors or colors that look super close to theirs on their model, and not every palette is like fit for VTubers and commission stuffs and all that.
Colors that you want, and it's all specifically for pixel art, which is really good because pixel art palettes usually need more contrast than traditional palettes. And right now we're just looking for a palette that has at least 3 shades per color, and that's because when we shade our pixel art, we're going to want 3 colors per material as a general rule. We're going to talk about that later, but
that's big brain. That's actually one of my favorite ways to shade, is like You have main color, highlight color, and then shade color. Now, if you want to have an outline color, you can, but that's why for a lot of my stuff, I just started to use the like dark blue outline, like literally the exact same blue as my background. This was my outline color for things. And then I would just do the like 3 shade rule. So I like how I'm learning things. If only I had found this video sooner.
Or you're looking at my screen as eyebrows low spec. There's some really cool stylized palettes here that are really good for game jams, in my opinion, when you need a strong identity. But for now, we just want a nice big general palette. The one that I used is linked in the description. If
I have that palette. It's so good.
Pre-made palettes in Aseprite that you can download. You can just click this button, and then I would recommend something like this one. Or you can find one on low spec, import it, and then set it to be your default palette by clicking these 3 lines and then save as default palette.
I made my own palette, actually. I wanted to have like a variety of good starting colors for VTuber models, so I went and like compiled a lot of the models that I had worked on and like color picked around and then chose general colors based on that. So my color palette is more of a like starting palette for things instead of directly use those colors, because there's a lot of times where you do want very unique colors.
All the tools we need to actually draw something. My workflow when it comes to doing pixel art is to start with the outline of what I'm doing, then fill in that outline with solid base colors, and then shade it. That could mean starting with construction lines for your outline and then using those to map out the proportions of what you're drawing. But another approach is to map out the basic shapes that make up whatever you're drawing, and then you can mold that into your outline, which gives...
This is how Boki taught me to draw, was to use silhouettes first, and then carve out your silhouettes based on the shapes you actually want to retain in your art. And that is probably one of my favorite ways to draw even now. Like if I'm doing a more dynamic piece, I'll do like a rough sketch, like it's normal art, right? And then I'll basically block in the shapes and like carve them out in pixel art, because it is way easier to see all your jagged lines and really crappy edges in a silhouette versus like once you have the line art and are refining it.
Do a really nice silhouette. Whatever strategy speaks to you, try it out. But when you do start working, you might notice that your pixels look pretty thick. These lines look a little bit chunky, especially when we're trying to use them to make a nice clean outline. That's because we're using something called doubles. Doubles are the extra pixels that are generally unnecessary, and they make your pixel art look really sharp because it's a bunch of right angles. When we get rid of our doubles, our pixel art is a lot more readable and it's a lot cleaner. In Aseprite, you can actually toggle this setting called Pixel Perfect, and now all of your lines will not automatically have doubles on them. Now, sometimes we do want doubles in order to bring more structure to a certain shape, or as a style choice. It usually comes across as really retro and bold, but you gotta keep it in. I love
how shapely it is. A lot of times when I would be drawing some of my small models, I would start adding like extra art to the line art to like add depth, right? So if you want maybe a lighter side to have like a thin line art, and then like the side that's more in shadow to have like thicker line art, you could do it that way. But yeah, dude, I never thought about it like that, but that makes sense.
It's inconsistent, then it's just gonna look messy. And speaking of messy lines, look at this. Now, this line doesn't have any doubles, but it does look really jagged, especially when we look at it from afar. So how do we fix it? Great question, subscriber. Because I know you're subscribed, right? Well, we want to make sure that each pixel here is smoothly transitioning to the next one. An easy way to do that is to count your pixels and repeat the same segment length on either side of a curve, usually keeping it symmetrical.
I learned this when I started making circles and wizard towers in Minecraft. No, genuinely though, this counting guide is really, really good. Something that I found when studying a lot of pixel artists' work is if you want your stuff to be much more shapely, you want to pay way more attention to the count that you use and use it consistently, right? So one of the artists I really like, the way that they work is they'll do 1s and 2s for most lines. Then if they want to put straights, they always put a 2 into a 3 into a long straight. It's never 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, like to create like rounded curves. It is always sacrifice the entire light amount of curvature for the full straight and just use the 3 pixels to curve straight into that. So a lot of pixel art is very much crafting your own rule set for how you want to work. And that's kind of how I've started working with different pixel artists to make them VTuber models and stuff like that, because you have to understand how someone else's style works so you can cut apart their art and prep it for rigging.
Cool. Like this one follows a nice little pattern, so it looks really nice. It's buttery smooth. And even if you don't have a big curve, if it's a small line, you can still apply this principle to make it look cleaner. It's really all about just gradually building up or down the number of pixels that you're using to make your line. Whenever I'm drawing a curve, even if it's barely a curve, I start with the two opposite ends of what I'm joining, and then fill in the pixels to make them meet in the middle. So now you know how to make smooth and clean pixel art without using bubbles.
Why is there a picture of The Rock?
Now, remember how I said earlier we want 3 colors per material when we're coloring things in? That's because we have a base color, a shadow, and then a highlight. Now, if you're using a palette, ideally you already have those, so you don't have to worry about mixing.
I like the palettes that do this, where they show you the examples of how it's broken down, because even though you can use this and you'll have like a little color picker on the side, what I like to do is on my pieces, I will literally draw a square or a circle with the lighting in the direction that I want. So that way I can have a direct reference to color pick from when going back and forth between the piece I'm working on and then like the lighting. So it's like, oh, I'm working on the back section. So let me pick like this middle tone so that I can use it as the main tone for the darker section, and use this like darkest tone for the like back of the character or whatever. Like that helps me a lot. These sorts of palettes, but like having them actually open on the art while you're working instead of just this palette. I don't know. That's how I like to work anyway.
But if you do want to level up your coloring even more, consider shading or highlighting with a different color than your base. For example, if we look at the portrait of Penny from Stardew Valley, who is the most boring NPC in the entire game, by the way. Not sorry. Her base hair color is orange because she's a ginger, but then the highlights are yellow and the shadows are purple. It isn't just light orange, dark orange, and that makes the colors look a lot more vivid.
Is that purple? Because it's red. What? That's a... Is that not red? Like it's... we're not going to talk about it. We're going to keep going. But like, you can't say that we're not going to talk about color theory and then literally talk about color theory. This is like, orange is the main color, right? Okay. Hold on. Let me, give me a second. Give me a second. Let me get my arms out. Where's the arm? Okay. Arm is out. All right. Oh. Okay. Is it this? It is. So like the orange, okay? We start with the orange, okay? This orange right here. And that's fine. But then we go to yellow because when you add light to orange or orange tones or orange things in nature, like it starts to shine yellow, right? Like that's how we go from there to here. Okay? Now, when you start to remove light from orange, it becomes brown. Now, this is not brown. This is red because you still want your oranges to be vibrant. So you start sliding it to the left. Basically, how you want to highlight in like, let me pull up like a color picker thing real quick to show you. But basically, I said we weren't going to focus on this, and then I'm like, I need to talk about this. Okay. Which one do I want to use? This one in Photoshop is fine. I think it's Photoshop. But yeah. So copy image. Actually, hold on. Okay, so you see this. I'm just going to cut it here. Un momento, por favor. All right, this is like a pretty standard color picker wheel box thing, okay? So. when color picking, a lot of times artists will tell you for things that are more in shadow, you're going to want to give it more of like a blue energy. And then for things that are more in light, you'll want to give it more like yellows and switch into like lighter tones. But how your shadows and lights work fully depend on what the color is, right? So it's like, if we're using this orange here, which is like Penny's hair, then lighter than orange is yellow and darker than orange is red. So while you're also shifting the hue for lights and shadows, you also want to shift your, hold on. I gotta put this behind my model. Hold, please. So, while you're also shifting the hue, you also end up shifting the saturation. So, it ends up being like Penny's shadow color is this dark red, but it's probably somewhere around here. And her orange is probably somewhere around here, like in this area, near this dot, right? And then her yellows are probably curving up this way. So the lighting on her model curves around this color picker, right? And so it's different for every single thing. All of them are different, okay? All of them are different. So if like you wanted a green, if you want to make your green lighter, you go into this like blue, or you can go into this green. But if you use one for your highlights, you use the opposite for shadow. So you like reverse it around. You know what I mean? That's how it works. That's how colors work. But yeah, she can't say that, oh, we're not going to do color theory and then talk about like reference a character that uses color theory for their hair. Anyway, anywhoomst, back to the video. Sorry. I needed to talk about that, okay? Like, that's crazy. That's not purple, by the way. That's not purple. Okay. Sorry.
So if you go to Google and then search color shading guide, you're gonna get a bunch of examples of what colors to shade what. Okay, I know that I said I wasn't gonna talk about color theory, but I feel like I need to give you a little bit better of an explanation than that.
SMH. Oh, hold on.
But the reason that this works is because of analogous colors.
Sorry.
And those are just any colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So if I'm coloring with red, and that's my base color, I can highlight with orange, and then I can shade with purple because those are analogous colors of red.
Yeah.
And if I'm doing green, I'm gonna highlight with yellow, and then I'll shade with blue. But no matter what, I like to start by doing my base color, and then I do my shadows, and then I add my highlights. But wait a second, Juniper, this is ugly. You are so right, Queen, and that's because I'm shading without thinking about where my light source is coming from. So instead, I'm just kind of wrapping shadows around the outline of my art, which doesn't look good, and it kind of looks like a pillow, which is why this is called pillow shading. It's really easy to do on accident if you're not thinking about a light source, because how else do you know where to put the shadows? So if I take this same piece of art, but now I decide that the light is going to be coming from this angle, now I kind of have an idea of where I should put my shadows. So before you really start shading anything, you should ask yourself where the light is coming from. And if you're making art for a game, you probably want to keep that angle of light consistent across all of your sprites. Now, a lot of pixel art games
Corner
are
sun,
top
let's go.
down, or usually drawn in a 3/4 view or an oblique view. That means you can usually see the top of what you're drawing as well as the front of it. So the light source in these games is usually coming from the top of the screen and then casting forward and down. So there's
I love
light
how
on the
she's
top
like
of every
using
single
her
one,
real
but fortunately,
person
most of the
at
lit
that
on the
point.
top. This kind of thinking is also what helps you think about perspective when you're drawing. If you're drawing a table and a chair for your game, you want to make sure that the angle of light is the same for both of those, but you also got to ask yourself, how much of each object should I see? Even if my chair is shorter than my table, I should still see the same amount of the top of the chair as the top of the table. Unless, of course, the table is more narrow than the chair, and I want to show that. All of those details are what makes pixel art really shine. And if you're watching this
So
because
true.
you want to make pixel art for games, then think about today's sponsor, GameMaker. GameMaker is a game development engine designed to help you make high-quality 2D games quickly, whether they're pixel art or not. This is a game called The King is Watching, and it was made in GameMaker.
I heard that of that
kingdom
game.
builder that came out about a month ago. All of this beautiful pixel art, the graphics, the UI, the gameplay, it's all powered by GameMaker. And the same thing goes for this
Fancy.
co-op island survival game called Tinkerlands. It's fast.
Maybe I could try
efficient,
GameMaker
you're
one
not gonna
day.
be spending 10 years following tutorials on how to navigate the engine. Because look, I've been using GameMaker for a long time now. Back in the day, 4 years ago, I started with one of
Back
the
in the
many
day.
Game Maker
4
tutorials that
years
they have
ago.
published on their channel, like this RPG one. I taught myself pixel art along the way, I joined their Discord server where I got all the help that I needed, and here we are. Because you, single-handedly, all on your lonesome, can release a game using Game Maker. So download Game Maker for free, by the way,
Heck
using my
yeah.
link in the description. So when you're shading, you want to think about light source, you want to think about perspective, but shading doesn't even necessarily mean that one color makes up all of your shadows. There's a lot of cool ways you can shade or even manipulate the outline of your piece to exaggerate light. Dithering, for example, is when you create kind of a pattern with two colors to give the illusion of a third color. It's usually like a checker pattern between two colors, but it doesn't
It
have
very
to be.
much-
This is how they shade
dithering-
things on older consoles.
Dithering very much depends on your aspect ratio too, because I've started to see some people that use like dithering patterns for like foliage or clouds and stuff like that, and it looks so beautiful. Oh my gosh, I think I saw a piece by Tofu the other day, and it was like a sunset, I think. Oh my gosh, it was stunning. But yeah, no, it's fully dependent on your resolution, what style of dithering you use. There's so many kinds.
And they literally didn't have space to add another color. But nowadays it can be a really cool stylistic choice. It can show
does look sick.
texture, or it can break up a really big area of shadow. You've also got anti-aliasing as an option, which kind of smooths or blends lines. You grab a color that
I've seen some artists that do anti-aliasing pretty heavy in their art. I tried it, dude, it's not for me. Like, I can add, you know, a couple pixels in to make a shadow, but like, dude, that's so difficult. That's so difficult. And they spend so much time making sure like every line has the perfect colors for the dithering too. I don't know how they do it. They're insane.
between two colors you're wanting to blend together, and place those pixels along the corners, only the corners, of your piece. You're kind of creating a gradient that almost looks like a shadow, but one that is very soft and very subtle. Anti-aliasing kind of makes pixel art look less like pixel art since you're removing a lot of the sharpness. It's really up to you whether you like it or not. It definitely takes some getting the hang of. But in my opinion, I think
it is
gives
tough.
art a really nice polished look. Now, another option when you're coloring is to change the way you're coloring your outline. Whenever I make pixel art, I usually start with like a solid black outline around whatever I'm drawing, but by the end of it, it's almost always recolored somehow, or I just got rid of it. Because first off, your outline doesn't have to be black. When you're looking at Stardew Valley, you're going to notice that everything has a different color outline, and it's pretty much just a darker version of whatever the object is. Plants have
It helps it be really defined. Even like I do that on my model. Like look at my hair. My hair has its outline is literally just a darker purple. You can see the same on my clothes. It's just a darker gray. Like other than the muff print in my hand, which that's from a time when I made everything have the same outline color because I was like, oh, consistency and style and whatever. Not now, but yeah, that's how I like to do my art now. I think I have a piece in here from that I did a little bit ago. Let me find it. It is. Oh, I have to. Oh, is it from a different scene? Let me see. Add image. There it is. Like this. This is a lineless piece that I ended up doing. But I did make a little color palette for it. Actually, I'm gonna like crop it so you can see the color palette. It's literally right here. I left it in the piece. But like that's how I do a lot of my art is like, I'll make these little mini palettes and then I'll do the whole piece based on these mini palettes. Like these are all the colors that you see in the piece I just showed you. Look at that. Wow. Wow. Yeah, Rosa's so pretty. So pretty. Yeah, that's like I think like the second piece I did in the style of my model or whatever. So yeah. Yeah. I'll get back to the video. We will yap about it afterwards.
Orange outlines, or you can look at something like Omori, where they use this really bright purple outline, and that gives it a really dreamlike and iconic style. In a game environment, you can also play around with an inconsistent outline style in order to draw focus to different things. Look at how the player in Celeste has an outline, but nothing else in the background does. The house still has shading, and also look at how it uses brown, but then the shadows are purple. It
also helps break the character from the background. Like something that I realized when I was making my small models, like these little dudes. Hold on. these is I made them have like a dark blue outline because I wanted them to stand out regardless what game my streamer children would be playing. So when their model is sitting in the corner, if they're playing a game that's lighter than them, there's a little break in the character. And then if it's darker, then it at least creates a little space in depth between them and the back of whatever they're on. Like, they were very much made to be put in a scene or in some sort of setting. So that's kind of why I ended up giving them that style, where I literally traced everything with that dark blue outline.
That's the color thing I was talking about earlier. But looking at the big picture, only the interactable objects have an outline. Even the ground and the platforms don't have outlines because that would make the characters stand out less. It's a similar story with AK Xolotl, but this time the characters have outlines, and so does everything else in the world, except the player, the items, and the NPCs, they have a black outline, and everything else is a dimmer, darker brown. So keeping things the same, like lighting and perspective, is good, but you have a lot more freedom with outline and color, and you can actually use it to guide the player and give your game an identity. It's definitely worth it to look at some of your favorite pixel art games and try and pay attention to what they're outlining and how they're guiding your eyes to the right things and not making things too busy. But that's some food for thought if you're making a game.
Food for thought.
Anyway,
Taking my
another way you can
notes.
color your outline is by shading it depending on where the light is coming from. The side of an object that's closest to the light could be a lot lighter, and then, vice versa for the shadowed side. When
I
it comes
loved
to
shading
art
like that. It's so
style,
fun.
Though, you can also think about the size of your outline. You can look at how the earlier version of Tinkerlands used to look with a really thick outline, or Hyper Light Drifter, which has no outline. The art in Hyper Light Drifter is so pretty, but it also must have been so hard, because to not use an outline means that, first off, your character has to be super readable in the environment still, which usually means making them significantly lighter or darker than their surrounding space.
I mean, okay, to be fair, it's not actually that difficult to make a lineless character stand out. This is when you shift the art into grayscale, and then if it's readable in grayscale, it should be readable in like normal colors. I will showcase this afterwards, but yeah, that's how that works. It's actually not more difficult. It's just, and also, okay, hold on. A thing I recommend, regardless, if you want to like improve your coloring skills, regardless of whatever the art medium is, have a layer that you add that turns your entire piece into grayscale. If it still looks good in grayscale, then you're on the right track. But if things look muddy or you can't tell the difference between certain shapes in grayscale, then that means there's a value issue. Now, to be fair, it could be just the character design has its own value issues and that's not your fault. But a lot of times it could be a value issue. And so if we took this game and we turned it into grayscale, you'd be able to see the character very clearly because the values are different. And also, that's another thing that's really important, especially because if people are colorblind, they might not see the colors in your art correctly, but they should be able to perceive the values in your art, like the difference in value. So, little food for thought.
And also, you need to have really defined shapes so that it's still readable without a clear outline. Anyway, so far we've talked about clean line work, perspective, shading, colors, everything to consider when you're making an art style. So now it's time for a bunch of miscellaneous tips and tricks that I don't really know how to categorize, but I think they're important.
I'm excited for these!
Tip number 1. If your art looks bad, and it's not because of the line work, take a look at your colors. Do you have more than 3 colors per material? And if so, is it necessary? I did a video forever ago. God, I look like a fetus. But I did a video where I critiqued the pixel art that you guys sent in. And a common problem was having way too many colors. The beauty of pixel art comes from its boldness and from its simplicity.
It would be fun to do a
So
pixel art
using
critique
too many
stream.
shades of the same color usually just makes something look really noisy and harder to look at. So unless you're doing that like super intentionally, probably not great. Tip number 2, use references. Same as traditional art, right? If you're making a pirate, you probably want to look at some pictures of pirates. However, we do live in 2025, unfortunately, which means if I'm drawing a horse and then I search horse,
2025.
I get to play the game of, is this a real horse? So
Yeah.
my
I
recommendation
think
is
there's a
search-
tip. If you like search for references before, isn't it like 2020 or something like that? You shouldn't get AI references, or at least nearly as many. But yeah, I think there's like a specific thing you have to do to search for things before the era of AI, because honestly, AI images have absolutely plagued artists, okay? Like, if you go on Pinterest and you're trying to find references, now I think you can sort on Pinterest to remove AI references now. But if you go on Pinterest and you're looking for references, you're like, oh, this character looks cute. Let me draw them, right? Let me just draw some random shit. And then you get to like a specific part in the hair and you're like, wait a fucking minute. Wait a fucking minute. That doesn't make sense. And then you realize you've been drawing AI this whole time, and then you get upset, and then it's like, I just wasted my time on some hot ass. Anyway.
Meant that is to go to Pinterest, which in my opinion has a lot less AI for now. Tip number 3, zoom out. Speed paints of me doing pixel art are genuinely—
Wait, tip number 3.1, open the preview window. You don't have to zoom out if you simply learn how to use the preview window and set that to a zoomed out aspect ratio. Down in the bottom, okay, hold on, down here, over here, this one, the one I'm putting my ear on, this one, that button right there, preview window. You can scale it, you can move it around, you can play animations, have them loop in it. Dude, preview window will save your freaking life, okay? I used to be one of those people that zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out all the dang time. You know how much time you waste drawing if you're zooming in and out? Like, imagine you were drawing on a real piece of paper, okay? But like, you draw a sketch and then you physically walk 5 feet away from the piece and then walk back up and then start drawing again. Like, you know how silly you look? Open the preview window, okay? It will be game changing. It's gonna take some getting used to because you're gonna still have that itch to scroll in and out. But dude, you need it. You need the preview window. Holy moly.
Schizophrenic because every 3 seconds I am zooming in and out of the canvas. But the reason I do that is because it matters a lot more how something will look from far away, and it can look very different up close versus far away. You want to try and make sure that you're refreshing your eyes with the size that you'll actually be seeing something on screen, especially if it's a small character in a game. In Aseprite, you can actually press F7 and that'll give you a little preview window, and then in that window,
preview window
to zoom out so you don't have to be doing it manually every 5 seconds like me.
Yeah, don't do that.
Number 4, you can't do art just because you want to get good at it. Nah, you gotta do it for the love of the game. Same thing
The
with
love of the
making YouTube
game!
videos, honestly, or making a game. You can't do it because you want the output of having a finished product, because then you're not gonna have any motivation when you start learning and suck and realize—
Well, wait, hold on. I don't know if that's necessarily true. You can do it purely because you want to. Like, I made VTubers because I wanted to. I learned to love making VTubers after I suffered through the pain of creating them, okay? Like, sometimes you do have to, like, you have to want to do a thing enough to persevere through the sucky part to get to the part you like. You know what I mean? I think that's a takeaway I had from watching that PewDiePie video where he was learning art for like 100 days. We still got to watch the 365-day one. But, like, there are going to be days where it sucks ass and you have to persevere, okay? It's going to suck some days. It's going to suck a lot of days, actually. It might suck more days than it's good, but you have to persevere through those moments to actually, like, reach the outcome you want. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Suck because you just started learning. Having goals? Great. Expecting high things of yourself? Fantastic. But realistically, you will not put in all the time that it takes to get to that point unless you can also learn to like making art, not just having made good art. But all of that being said, you got it. You're gonna be fine. Hopefully something helped you out in this video, and if it did, maybe subscribe. That would be pretty cool. Or you can join my game development Discord server if you want a little community where you can share your stuff. And seriously, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!
Thank you for that very informative video. That was lovely. Let me drop it in chat so you guys can go interact with it and all that good jazz. All that good jazz. But yeah, no, honestly, okay, let me get caught up on what you guys were yapping about, because I was reading, but I wasn't yapping. Yeah, no, she do be right. She do be right about a lot of things. Also, hello, Capitan, welcome in. Halloween, welcome in. You have to go make the grass closer to Earth. It'd be like that sometimes. Let's see. Down. Preview window is life-saving. It is life-saving indeed. I wanted to add this. Here we go. Ooh. Okay. Maybe us artists are just masochists and we love pain. Honestly, I think we do. I think we do. I think artists are genuinely insane. All of us have lost our marbles collectively, okay? Hold on. I think artists, we have lost our minds. Oh my gosh, minds, marbles. Every artist I know is insane to some degree, okay? Whether they spend literal months, hours, weeks, years on projects or what have you, dude, artists are probably some of the most like committed people I've seen though too. And I don't just mean like people who do digital art or traditional art. I mean people who make games, like people who indulge. I mean people who indulge in creative mediums in general, right? Like, it takes a lot of perseverance to like finish a project, to finish a piece, to finish a game, to finish a VTuber, all those things. Because everything takes a lot of time to learn. I think I saw a message from a chatter somewhere and it was like, no one's born with the skill. And I don't think that's true, okay? Prodigies are a very real thing, okay? I've seen it with my eyes. I've seen that 8-year-old that can play like literally every freaking Beethoven song, okay? But like a lot of people aren't prodigies, right? So where people call us talented, it's not that we're talented, it's that we've persevered through the sucky parts to get to where we are now. Like I spent some time today looking at all the art pieces that one of my favorite artists had ever made in all their time of posting online. And the art journey was crazy, dudes. It was crazy. But that's the thing, right? That's the thing. If they had stopped posting because they thought their art was shit, then they probably wouldn't have been my favorite artist today because of when I discovered them, right? So, you know, you can't get too discouraged with your own like growth journey and process because everyone's looks completely different. Some people will have like a singular piece or project that they work on that like completely shifts their mindset with how they approach things in the future. And so you kind of have to work with that in mind, you know? Yeah. There must just be something wrong with you then. I mean, hey, I think we're all a little bit crazy for the arts, crazy for the doodles, the gags, the drawings, and all that fun stuff. But I don't know. I think that's what makes it fun, right? Taking time to actually like just sit down and enjoy drawing something for drawing's sake and not putting too much pressure on yourself to finish it. I don't get to do that very often, but I got to the other day and it was so refreshing. I was like, I think I did like a little sketch page and it only had 2 poses on it, but one of them I colored in a little bit and I was like, you know what? I think I'm okay. I'm gonna stop here. I don't feel like drawing anymore, but I had fun with the little doodle that I did. And I want to be able to do more of that. More, I'm just drawing for this brief moment in time. And when I want to stop, I can stop and say I'm satisfied with what I did. And that doesn't always happen. Like I have a ton of sketches, I have a ton of doodles, I have a ton of OCs that I've doodled and created and I will never be using or drawing them ever again. But like, I think there's something fun in looking back on, I had fun when I took time to draw this or took time to create this, you know? Enjoying the process is like huge. It's huge, dudes. Same, just draw random nonsense. Yeah, just draw random nonsense. It doesn't always have to be like a beautiful, stunning piece every single time. I think sometimes if you spend too much time looking at like things other artists are creating on social media, it starts to feel like, oh, well, everything I draw has to be a finished piece. But you probably don't see how many sketches they do behind the scenes or how many redraws they did to create that piece. Or maybe that's an old whip that they decided to like redo in their latest part of their art journey. You never know. So it's like, don't put too much pressure on yourself to try and compete with other artists. You will grow and you will improve at your own frequency. Anyway, thank you so much for watching on YouTube. Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe. And remember to eat something delicious. I had yogurt and granola. We ran out of fruit, unfortunately. But eat something delicious for me today. And remember to travel safely so I can see you dudes tomorrow. Alright, bye YouTube! Is it this? Nope, that's the mic. It's this one. Bye YouTube! do, 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 do. YouTube is a little slow. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. All right. Fantastic. Beautiful.